Lillian adjusted the lace curtains, her old bones creaking like rusty hinges. Sunlight struggled to penetrate the dusty window panes. For 80 years, this house had been her sanctuary, her prison, 80 years since that night.
She shuddered. The room for rent sign swayed slightly in the breeze outside. She needed the money, yes, but even more, she needed someone to share the silence.
The doorbell chimed, a shrill, unexpected sound. Her heart skipped a beat. Visitors were rare, especially now that she wouldn't think about it.
Straightening her shawl, she shuffled towards the door, each step a reminder of the years weighing her down. She opened the door a crack, peering through the gap. A young man stood on the porch, shifting his weight nervously. He had kind eyes, but his clothes were worn, and a thin scar snaked down his cheek. He looked like a stray dog, lost and a little dangerous. Perhaps he was the company she craved. Perhaps he was another mistake.
You the one with the room?
The young man rasped, his voice rough as gravel. He pushed back his greasy hair, revealing haunted eyes. Lillian hesitated, her hand tightening on the doorknob. He was certainly rough around the edges, but his desperation tugged at something deep within her. It mirrored her own.
Yes, I have a room available, but I run a tight ship. No loud music, no guests, and no—
Her voice dropped to a low murmur.
No going in the basement.
The young man, Clyde, he had said his name was Clyde, didn't seem to notice her discomfort.
Sounds fair, sounds perfect.
He reached out to shake her hand, and for a moment, Lillian saw a flicker of something dark in his eyes, something hungry. She quickly ushered him inside, her pulse quickening. What had she done? She had invited a stranger, a dangerous one at that, into her home. She just prayed it wasn't another mistake she would regret. Clyde tossed his duffel bag onto the threadbare rug in his new room. It wasn't much, but it was a roof over his head. He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes scanning the faded wallpaper and chipped paint. He was on the run, no doubt about it. The cops were getting too close this time. He needed to lie low, disappear for a while. The old woman Lillian had seemed nice enough, if a little strange. He chuckled to himself, remembering her rules. No loud music, no guests, and no going in the basement. What was she hiding down there?
Every old house had secrets, and something told him this one was no different.
He tried the doorknob to the basement, but it was locked. Of course it was. But that wouldn't stop him. He just needed to find the key. The house creaked and groaned around him, a symphony of age and decay. Clyde smiled. He had a feeling he was going to like it here. Days turned into weeks, and Clyde settled into an uneasy routine. He helped Lillian with chores, chopping firewood and fixing leaky faucets. She cooked him simple meals, her wrinkled hands moving with surprising agility. He told her his name was Cal, a harmless alias. He couldn't shake the feeling she saw right through him, though. But the basement door remained a locked enigma, a constant itch under his skin. He caught Lillian staring at it sometimes, her eyes filled with a strange mixture of fear and longing. What was down there? What secret was she guarding so fiercely? He became obsessed, determined to uncover the truth. One afternoon, while Lillian was out buying groceries, Clyde decided to take his chance. He'd seen her hide the key, tucked away in a chipped teacup on the top shelf. His heart pounded as he retrieved it, his fingers trembling slightly. He knew he shouldn't be doing this, but the allure of the unknown was too strong to resist. He crept towards the basement door, his breath catching in his throat. The air grew heavy, the silence thick with anticipation. He inserted the key into the lock, the metal cold and unforgiving against his touch. With a deep breath, he turned the key and pulled the door open, a musty, earthy smell wafting up to greet him. Clyde stepped cautiously onto the top step, the air growing noticeably colder. The musty odor intensified, mingling with something else, something metallic and ancient. He flicked on the light switch, but the bulb remained stubbornly unlit. The only light came from the open door behind him, casting long, distorted shadows that danced and writhed in the darkness.
He descended slowly, each creaking step sending shivers down his spine. The air grew thick and oppressive, pressing down on him like a physical weight. He felt a strange tingling sensation in his fingertips, a numbness that spread quickly up his arms.
He paused, his hand gripping the rough-hewn railing. He tried to turn back, but his legs felt heavy, unresponsive. His breath came in ragged gasps, each one a monumental effort. He looked down at his hands, his blood turning to ice. They were shriveled, covered in age spots, his fingers twisting into grotesque claws. Panic surged through him, a tidal wave of terror.
His reflection in the dusty window pane at the bottom of the stairs confirmed his worst fears. His face was gaunt, his skin stretched taut over protruding bones. His hair, once thick and black, was now a shock of white. He had aged decades in a matter of seconds. He was ancient, feeble, a prisoner in his own rapidly decaying body.
The sound of Lillian's key in the lock echoed through the house like a death knell. Clyde, or rather the withered husk that had once been Clyde, lay crumpled at the bottom of the basement stairs, his chest heaving with shallow breaths. He tried to call out, but his voice was a dry rasp, lost in the cavernous depths. He heard Lillian's startled cry as she saw him. Her footsteps hurried and panicked as she descended the stairs. She stopped on the bottom step, her eyes wide with horror.
But something strange was happening. The wrinkles on her face seemed to fade, her skin taking on a youthful glow. Her hunched back straightened, her grey hair regaining its former luster.
Lillian, now appearing years younger, knelt beside Clyde at the bottom of the stairs, her hand outstretched in concern but hesitant to touch him.
"Clyde, what have you done?" she whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and something else. "Hope?"
He tried to answer, to warn her, but the words wouldn't come. He could only watch in silent terror as she took another step, her hand reaching out to touch his cheek.
Lillian's touch was electric, sending a jolt through Clyde's withered frame. He watched in disbelief as the years seemed to melt away from her. Her eyes, once clouded with age, now sparkled with youthful vibrancy. Her lips, once thin and pale, were now full and rosy. She was transforming before his very eyes, shedding decades like a snakeskin. "Don't touch me," he croaked, his voice a raspy whisper.
But it was too late. Lillian's hand was on his, her touch sending a surge of energy through his body. He felt a moment of dizzying disorientation, a sense of time bending and twisting around him. Then, it was gone. He looked down at his hands, expecting to see them restored to their youthful vigor, but nothing had changed. He was still old, still frail, still trapped.
"It's the curse," Lillian whispered, her voice trembling. "The house. It's cursed." She turned to him, her eyes filled with a strange mixture of sadness and relief. "It happened so long ago," she continued, her voice barely a whisper. "I was young, foolish. There was a man, a love affair my husband should never have known about. He found out, of course, and in his rage he cursed this house. He swore that anyone who lived here would never age, never die, but would be forever tethered to the age they were when they entered. I was young then, beautiful. He was old, ready to die. He trapped me here in this prison of youth while he withered away upstairs. I've been alone ever since, cursed to walk the earth forever, but never to truly live."
For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Clyde felt a flicker of hope. He might be old, but Lillian was young again, beautiful, vibrant. Maybe this curse wasn't a curse after all. Maybe it was a second chance.
"Lillian," he croaked, his voice hoarse with emotion. "We can be young together, you and me." His eyes, old and tired, held a spark of something akin to desire. He tried to rise to show her he was still strong, still desirable.
But his legs, withered and weak, betrayed him. He stumbled, his foot catching on the uneven basement floor. He crashed to the ground with a sickening thud, his bones feeling brittle, ready to turn to dust. His vision blurred, the edges of his consciousness fading in and out. Lillian watched in horror as Clyde collapsed, her youthful features contorting in a mask of panic. She rushed to his side, her hand hovering over his frail body. She knew she couldn't touch him, not without reversing the effects of the curse. Not without dooming herself to an eternity of infancy, but she couldn't just leave him there, helpless, dying. She had to do something. Desperation clawed at her, choking her with its icy grip.
"Don't worry, Clyde," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I won't let you die, I promise."
Her eyes, wide and frantic, darted to the basement steps, to the open doorway that led back to the world above. A terrible plan was forming in her mind, a desperate gamble born of fear and a lifetime of solitude. With a sob that tore through the silence, Lillian made her choice. She scrambled to her feet, her youthful agility a cruel mockery of Clyde's helpless state. She ran to the stairs, taking the steps 2 at a time, her descent mirroring her earlier transformation. With each step, she felt the curse taking hold, pulling her backward through time, her limbs shortened, her clothes becoming loose and baggy, her once lustrous hair turned into wispy tufts, her thoughts scattered, replaced by primal fear. She stumbled on the bottom step, falling the short distance with a soft thud. Her diaper-clad bottom hit the cold concrete floor, and the transformation was complete. Lillian was gone, replaced by a gurgling, helpless infant. She crawled towards Clyde, her chubby hand reaching out to him with a mixture of fear and longing. He lay on the cold concrete, his body a shrunken husk, his breath shallow and raspy. Their eyes met, his filled with a lifetime of regret, hers with the blank innocence of infancy. They were trapped, an immortal old man and a newborn babe, forever bound together in this subterranean prison of their own making. The curse had claimed them both,